Welcome to Audio MIDI Interfaces, a 100-level starter. Today we're covering the most basic aspects of the Audio MIDI interface, the black box that connects mics and instruments to the computer, and the computer to speakers and headphones. These boxes come in many sizes and shapes, and they might even be in the form of a card that goes inside your computer. Granted, most computers have headphone outputs and microphone inputs, but they don't really offer good enough sound quality for someone who wants their music to sound impressive. So the audio interface is a key system component for every musician and engineer who cares about the sounds they're creating. The interface connects to the computer via one of the following digital formats: USB 1, USB 2, USB 3, Firewire 400, Firewire 800, Thunderbolt 1, 2, and 3. All these formats carry digital data to and from the DAW, but some just carry it faster than others. The current standard for connecting an interface to the computer is USB 3 and Thunderbolt, either of which is extremely capable of carrying many tracks of digital audio along with video. In fact, there are still a lot of USB 2 and Firewire interfaces available, and they're also very capable of supporting large digital audio and video projects. Most interfaces contain several types of digital and analog inputs and outputs. A device that converts the analog or digital input signal to an analog or digital output signal is called an I/O, which stands for input and output. Digital interfaces contain a very wide range of I/O capacity, from 1 or 2 inputs and a stereo output to a full-blown professional system that's able to play back up to 768 tracks and accommodate up to 192 simultaneous physical ins and outs. The analog signal that comes from an instrument or microphone must be converted to digital data so it can be processed in the digital domain, the DAW. The analog to digital converter, denoted A/D or ADC, performs this task. The digital data that comes from the DAW must be converted to an analog signal that will be amplified so we can hear it. The digital to analog converter, denoted D/A or DAC, performs this task. All useful audio interfaces have at least one balanced XLR microphone input capable of supplying 48-volt phantom power to microphones that require it. Microphones provide a relatively weak signal that needs to be boosted by a preamplifier to be compatible with the interface signal path. Instrument inputs typically use a 1/4-inch TS phone connector and are best suited to the signal that comes from an electric or bass guitar. These instruments provide a signal that's stronger than a mic-level signal, but still can require a little boost. Line inputs on most interfaces use 1/4-inch TRS phone connectors and are best suited and matched for use with outboard processors, mixers, and outboard mic preamps. Most modern interfaces take advantage of combo connectors, which are relatively new. They're able to receive either XLR or 1/4-inch inputs in the same jack. This ingenious design simply uses the space surrounded by the XLR pins for a hole in which to plug a male 1/4-inch phone connector. Most small interfaces offer a main stereo output that can be connected to monitor speakers, and also a headphone output. Since most recordings simply require a stereo mix, a lot can be accomplished with this 2-channel output. Even though the DAW might contain 50 tracks, they're all just mixed down to stereo. At the next level, interfaces offer 4 or more outputs that can be routed internally through the use of a software utility. These outputs might be used to feed the stereo mains, and the other 2 channels could feed the monitor system or even an analog mixer. Mid-level and high-end interfaces typically offer a couple different types of digital inputs. SPDIF is a stereo I/O connection, and the optical digital connections are usually multi-track in 8-track I/O bundles. MIDI facilitates a lot of things, including virtual instrument controllers, mix automation, and everything that happens with a keyboard controller. A USB connection from the keyboard, controller, or other controlling device also uses MIDI, although it's within the USB connection, not via the standard 5-pin MIDI jack. Whether MIDI or audio data, it takes a certain amount of time for the original analog signal to be converted to digital data, processed by the DAW, and converted back to analog sound so that we can hear it. That time delay is called latency. Latency is annoying during the tracking process because the performer hears the sound he or she has produced a few or several milliseconds late in the headphones. The amount of delay, the latency, is determined by factors such as the computer's processing power, settings in the basic interface configuration, and the processing demands of active plugins and effects. Some interfaces provide zero latency, the ideal, which is just like hearing the sound in real time. USB interfaces tend to work seamlessly with Mac OS and often with Windows systems. But there are instances when a set of instructions, a tiny software utility, is needed for the interface and computer to work together. If your system needs it, that set of instructions, called a driver, is a mandatory part of a functioning system. Many larger interfaces include two connectors on the back labeled clock, word clock, or sync. The clock in and out connections are used frequently in larger systems that incorporate multiple digital devices. Digital devices must work together in perfect sync, all moving from sample to sample at the same rate and perfectly in time. If the devices aren't perfectly synchronized, there'll be pops, clicks, and dropouts in the audio. The clock connections need to be connected together with one device designated as the master. When all is well with the system, each device follows the master clock, sample for sample. Now it's time to take the test that accompanies this video, and be sure to fill out the contact info so we can keep in touch. We'll alert you when new Tech Talk training tutorials are released. We're in the process of creating a complete series of training videos covering topics including interfaces, microphones, digital audio workstations, mobile recording, wireless technology, monitor systems, and more. And we'll even be creating several product-specific tutorials. If you have comments or suggestions for helpful topics, please email us at techtalk@HalLeonard.com.